The night at Ibrox was not about glamour or dominance, but about grit, patience, and doing just enough to get the job done. Rangers once again found a way to overcome Hibernian, extending that long-standing, unbeaten home record against the Edinburgh side that now stretches beyond 2 decades. It was another narrow victory, a one-goal margin that reflected a match where control came in spells rather than waves, and where the margins were thin throughout. As the full-time whistle went, the sense was not of celebration, but of relief, because these are the kinds of games that can easily slip away if focus drops for even a moment. The decisive moment arrived through a move that showed clarity and quality in an otherwise scrappy contest. Dujon Sterling delivered a perfectly weighted ball into the box, the kind of cross that demands conviction from the attacker. Manuel Fernandez read it superbly, timing his movement and guiding a clever flicked header beyond the goalkeeper. It was a goal that came slightly against the flow of the game at a point where Hibernian were enjoying more of the ball, but football often rewards precision over possession. That single action was enough to separate the sides by the break and ultimately decide the outcome. After the interval, Rangers struggled to truly kick on. The recurring issue resurfaced, that lack of sharpness and imagination in the final third. There was plenty of effort, plenty of running, but very little incision. The absence of Bojan Majowski was clearly felt, especially considering his recent scoring form. Without him, Rangers lacked a natural focal point who thrives on half chances. The opportunities that did fall were not taken with the ruthlessness required at this level, and that kept Hibernian within touching distance far longer than they should have been. Chimiti worked tirelessly, pressing and making himself available, but hard work alone does not win matches at this level. The missed chances were costly in terms of comfort, if not the final result. One effort skewed wide when composure was needed. Another struck straight at the goalkeeper when placing it to either side would almost certainly have doubled the lead. Moments like that change the entire complexion of a match. At 2 goals ahead, the contest is effectively finished. At 1, every misplaced pass or defensive lapse carries weight. Defensively, there were signs of improvement. The structure looked more solid, and there was better balance across the back line. Max brought energy and mobility on the right side, offering more pace and willingness to push forward. When Tavernier entered the game later on, the contrast was stark. He struggled to find rhythm, looked off the pace, and conceded unnecessary fouls. It was a difficult cameo that underlined how sharpness and timing are essential, especially in tight matches where momentum is fragile. Sterling continued to impress, showing composure on the ball and intelligence in his positioning. His assist was no accident, the product of awareness and execution. In midfield, there was industry but not dominance. Rangers were at times overrun, particularly when Hibernian pressed aggressively and committed numbers forward. The team defended in numbers, often relying on last-ditch interventions and recovery runs to snuff out danger. Connor Barron stood out as the heartbeat of the side. His performance was defined by effort, aggression, and intelligence. Time and again, he broke up play, tracked runners, and recovered possession. When Rangers were under pressure, he was often the first line of resistance, stopping attacks before they could gather momentum. When he won the ball, he used it sensibly, keeping things ticking and occasionally driving forward to spark attacks. In a match where control was fleeting, his contribution was invaluable. Mikey Moore also delivered a performance that spoke of maturity beyond his years. Although listed on the right, he drifted centrally, finding pockets of space and influencing the game where it mattered most. He showed confidence in carrying the ball, taking on defenders and looking to make things happen. Several of his efforts were blocked, a sign of his willingness to take responsibility and try to force openings rather than hiding on the periphery. There was drive and determination in his play, even when he was clipped or kicked. He got back up and went again. His development over recent weeks has been evident. Earlier doubts about his suitability have been answered by performances that show growing confidence and understanding of his role. Being allowed to operate more centrally suits his skill set far better than being pinned wide. His first touch, close control, and bravery on the ball give Rangers a different dimension, particularly in matches where space is limited and creativity is at a premium. At the back, Jack Butland had a relatively quiet evening, but when called upon, he was reliable. Fernandez looked more assured, dealing with situations more decisively than in previous outings. The left side was steady while the midfield grafted without truly stamping authority on the game. Finlay Curtis put in an honest shift, delivering one inviting cross from the left that deserved a finish, yet again highlighting the lack of presence attacking the box. Too often balls went in without anyone attacking them with conviction, a problem that continues to haunt Rangers. The substitutes failed to significantly change the flow of the game. Some struggled to make an impact, others looked short of confidence. It was another reminder of the limitations within the squad and the lack of depth in attacking areas. Despite that, the most important outcome was achieved. 3 points were secured, and in a season where consistency has been elusive, stacking wins is essential. The focus now inevitably turns to Sunday and the challenge that awaits. Hearts represent a different level of opposition, well-organized and disciplined, especially on their own ground. Rangers will need to raise their performance levels considerably, showing greater sharpness and composure in front of goal. The foundation is there defensively, but without greater clinical edge. Tougher tests will expose the same familiar flaws as attention shifts away from Ibrox and toward what lies ahead. There's an unmistakable sense that Rangers are still searching for balance, both in personnel and identity. The win against Hibernian did its job in terms of points, but it also highlighted how thin the margins are right now. There is little room for error, and that reality places extra scrutiny on every selection, every substitution, and every individual performance as the schedule tightens. One of the most intriguing talking points to emerge was the absence of Joe Rothwell from the matchday picture. When a player drops out entirely, especially without injury concerns being front and center, questions naturally follow. The growing noise around a potential move back south feels louder with each passing day. His time in Scotland has never quite aligned with expectations, and despite flashes of quality elsewhere in his career, it has not translated consistently in a Rangers shirt. The sense is that a change of environment may suit all parties, offering him regular football and allowing Rangers to reshape an area of the squad that has not delivered as hoped. The possibility of departures in January inevitably feeds into the broader conversation about squad depth. There are areas that look stretched, particularly in attack, where options off the bench feel limited and predictable. That reality puts extra pressure on the starting 11 to deliver often week after week without the luxury of meaningful rotation. It also explains some of the pragmatic decisions being made where solidity is prioritized over flair because the alternatives simply are not there. Defensive selection remains another puzzle, with absences continuing to affect the backline. Flexibility is essential. The introduction of Clinton and Ciala hinted at potential adjustments, perhaps even a shift in shape, depending on the opponent. A back three offers stability but can limit width, while a back four demands discipline from fullbacks who are expected to contribute going forward. The coming fixture may force a compromise, especially with further changes on the horizon. Midfield, for all its effort, remains a battleground. The work rate is unquestionable, yet control comes and goes too easily against sides willing to press aggressively. Rangers can find themselves chasing shadows, relying on individual duels rather than dictating tempo. Connor Barron's influence helps mask some of that, but expecting one player to carry that burden consistently is unrealistic. There is a need for greater cohesion, quicker decision-making, and more movement ahead of the ball to offer clear passing lanes. Mikey Moore's role will again be fascinating to watch. His confidence is growing, and with that comes a willingness to demand the ball in tight areas. That bravery is essential against organized opponents who look to compress space and force mistakes. His ability to drift inside and link play adds unpredictability, something Rangers have lacked at times. The challenge will be maintaining that influence when physical battles intensify and space becomes even harder to find. Up front, the question of who leads the line remains unresolved. Without a fully fit and firing striker, Rangers are often left hoping that chances fall kindly rather than being created with intent. Movement in the box, timing of runs, and sheer hunger to attack crosses have all been inconsistent. It places enormous responsibility on midfield runners and wide players to contribute goals, which is rarely sustainable over a long run of matches. Looking ahead to the weekend, the environment will be hostile, the margins tight, and patience essential. Hearts are disciplined, structured, and comfortable without the ball. They do not need long spells of possession to hurt teams, instead relying on organization and swift transitions. Rangers will have to be sharper in their build-up, braver in possession, and far more decisive when openings appear. Slow starts or sloppy passing will only feed the confidence of the opposition and the crowd. There is also a mental aspect that cannot be ignored. Grinding out narrow wins builds resilience, but it can also breed anxiety if patterns do not change. The players know that performances need to improve, not just results. Confidence is fragile, and the next goal, the next clean strike, the next convincing display could make a significant difference in how this side approaches games. For now, the focus remains on preparation and problem-solving. Adjustments will be made, selections debated, and expectations tempered by the reality of the squad at hand. Rangers continue to move forward, not always smoothly, but with purpose, knowing that each fixture brings another opportunity to refine, to respond, and to push closer to the level demanded by the badge they wear. There is also an underlying sense that some players are playing not just for results, but for their future roles within the squad. Performances are being judged intensely, not only by supporters, but internally, as decisions loom over who can be relied upon in demanding fixtures. In that context, every duel won, every tracking run, every moment of composure under pressure carries added weight. The margin between being trusted and being sidelined feels increasingly thin, and that pressure can either sharpen focus or expose limitations. Tactically, Rangers appear caught between wanting to be proactive and needing to be cautious. When they push numbers forward, the lack of cutting edge becomes clear. When they sit slightly deeper, they invite pressure that tests concentration and discipline. Finding the right balance has been elusive, and it places a premium on in-game management. Small tweaks, such as quicker ball circulation or earlier forward passes, could relieve pressure and create better attacking scenarios, but execution has to improve collectively. The physical demands of the schedule are another factor that cannot be overlooked. With limited rotation options, fatigue becomes both a physical and mental challenge. Late in matches, decision-making slows, distances between lines grow, and opponents sense vulnerability. This is where leadership on the pitch becomes crucial, with players needing to organize, communicate, and slow the game when necessary, rather than allowing it to become stretched and chaotic. Ultimately, this phase of the season feels like a test of resolve. The performances may not yet reflect the standards associated with Rangers at their best, but there is still an opportunity to build momentum through resilience and incremental improvement. Each match offers lessons, both positive and negative, and how quickly those lessons are absorbed will shape what comes next as the demands only continue to rise. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. A low, restless murmur has been rolling through Ibrox and far beyond its brick walls after word began to spread that James Tavernier has announced his intention to move on from Rangers. Nothing has been dressed up as a grand farewell just yet, but the noise is impossible to ignore. In pubs, on buses, and across phone screens, supporters are piecing together what this really means for the Light Blues and for a captain who has come to define an era. Tavernier's name has long been stitched into the modern fabric of the club. A leader by armband and example, his presence on the right flank has been as familiar as the roar from the Broomloan. That is why the suggestion of an exit has landed less like a clean statement and more like a sudden change in the weather. Some insist it has been quietly coming. Others swear it still feels too soon. Either way, the sense is that something is shifting behind the scenes. Whispers suggest the decision is as much about timing as ambition. Tavernier is said to believe the moment is right, that a chapter can be closed without bitterness. There is respect on both sides, according to those close to the dressing room, and an understanding that cycles in football do not wait for comfort. Still, respect does not dull the shock. For many, Rangers without Tavernier feels like a picture missing a familiar color. Speculation has filled the space left by the lack of detail, where he might go, how the gaffer plans to reshape leadership, and who dares step into that demanding role are all part of the chatter. Some reckon the club is already preparing for life after its skipper. Others think the door has been left ajar just in case. What is certain is that this announcement has stirred memories, arguments, and a fair bit of nostalgia. Until clarity arrives, the rumor mill will keep turning. Tavernier's legacy is not in doubt, but his future has become the talk of Scottish football, a reminder that even the most solid figures can suddenly feel like they are on the move. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned